Let's wrap up another crazy week in this crazy world with GT Communications Gemma Tognini. Gemma, good to see you again.
Hello, Christopher.
Can you believe all we've been through with this bloody pandemic, all we've learned about vaccines and transmission and laws and rules and liberty, that the US won't let Novak Djokovic into play in the US Open?
Well, I think we talked about this the other week. The US is deeply troubled, and here's another piece of evidence about it. I mean, there is no science to support this. There is no evidence to support this. There is no rationale to support this decision. This is a political policy. It's not a health policy. I'm going to see my family in Italy in about 3 or 4 weeks' time, and I said to my travel agent, what are the COVID things I have to know? And he goes, love, literally nothing. He said, you might have to wear a mask on the plane depending on the airline. I haven't checked yet. And you might be asked for a mask on the train in Italy. My brother's just come back from 5 weeks in Italy, and he's just like, the world has moved on.
Well, this is what it is, right? Now, we all know things were a bit tricky early and there weren't vaccines, but it took us too long to get here. But this is where we're always going to get to. It's your own personal issue. You know the risks, you know the disease. You can wear masks, get vaccinated, whatever you like. But let's not have these rules.
Let's not have these rules under which is worse, under the pretense that they are valid.
They're keeping us safe.
Oh,
I tell you, I know.
I give someone a Chinese burn every time they say that to me.
I have to, I know I have to go back 40 years for this comment, but John McEnroe was spot on about this decision.
Excuse me? Look, you can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious!
I feel like that was a valid...
They cannot be serious.
I want to record that on my phone and just play it every time, even in Perth. I mean, I've just come back from a week in the wonderful Western Australia, and there's still quite a lot of COVID fear over there.
Do you know,
unsurprisingly,
do you know, apropos of nothing, that back in the days that McEnroe was like that and champion of the world, I had the same hairdo, and all I needed to do was put on a headband, and people said, "You're John McEnroe."
I have seen those photos, so I can confirm, everyone, it's true.
Yeah, the old McEnroe fancy dress. Now, tell us about staying in the US. I want to talk about Mark Zuckerberg. Now, we all know that Twitter banned the story about Hunter Biden and the laptop in the lead up to the US presidential election. We know the New York Post ran it, and the rest of the media tried to they tried to hide it. Zuckerberg has admitted that he says they was FBI advice, they were a bit wary, but they admitted, and he's talked about it for the first time on the Joe Rogan podcast, about how Facebook pushed this story down. Have a look.
Fewer people saw it than would have otherwise. So it definitely...
By what percentage?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's meaningful.
When something like that turns out to be real, is there regret for not having it evenly distributed?
I mean, it sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because it turned out after the fact, the fact checkers looked into it. No one was able to say it was false.
There you go. We all kind of knew this anyway, but it's so chilling to hear him talk about it. You're talking about billions of people, information suppressed.
And I think his reaction and his language there is actually very interesting. He says it sucks. No, stubbing your toe sucks.
Yes.
Missing out on the last loaf of bread at the bakery sucks. Suppressing critical information to, as you said, I don't know how many people are on Facebook, billions of people, under the auspices of it not being valid, and then turning around and going, God, that sucks. I don't know whether it's disingenuous or there's a little bit of embarrassment there, or he knows exactly what he's doing and is like, oopsie, mea culpa. It's not something to be brushed aside as something that's trivial.
Absolutely, and it's a real insight into the incredible power of these digital giants and
their publisher.
And they don't have the responsibilities as a publisher.
Exactly.
That's the trouble.
And that interview right there is a great example of why they should be treated as a publisher with the same consequences when they behave poorly, because they are deciding what we see and what we don't see. They're not just, hey, it's a platform, publish what you like.
That's a publisher's decision to suppress that story.
Yet
there's none of the accountability that a publisher gets. Yeah, very good point. Let's stay in the US because, strangely enough, it still seems to be Donald Trump and that battle and everything that flows from it that dominates the news. And overnight our time, we're expecting perhaps for the affidavit that the FBI used to search Mar-a-Lago will be released. A lot of it's going to be redacted apparently, but if we want transparency, we've got to see what they're after here from Donald Trump.
I mean, everybody has a bit of hysteria about Trump, and I understand why, and this isn't me defending him or advocating for him. What I'm saying is that if we're going to have governmental transparency and a better level of politics, and it has to be across the board, there are serious concerns about this raid, how it was instigated, by whom, for what reasons. And those questions need to be answered, just like the questions around the Biden family, Biden's cognitive health, Nancy Pelosi's husband, all of those things. It's like this, it feels from afar at least, this simmering pot that's about to overboil on the stove, and we don't really know what's going to come out.
I've got to say, at first blush, I thought, given the benefit of the doubt, they wouldn't be doing this unless there was something legitimate, but nothing substantial has come forward. Presidents and prime ministers can declassify information.
Yes, of course.
They will have documents, and this does look like a continuation of that bias within the FBI.
I was saying to a friend the other day, I still am not quite sure what QAnon is, and I'm quite happy to say what that is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so I'm not even remotely on that side of the fridge, particularly where he's concerned. But
likewise.
It did not strike me as legitimate or justified at all.
Especially when you compare it to the treatment of Hillary and her home server.
Let's also talk about why we don't know Ghislaine Maxwell's address book and her client list. How do we still not know that? How come nobody's been charged? She's in jail.
Yes,
nobody's
indeed.
been charged with procuring children for sex.
Yeah, incredible stuff. There doesn't seem to be a quality of focus on some of these things from the media or, really troublingly, from the law enforcement agencies. I want to drag you back to COVID management, because I've got to remind you that this woman has been reappointed for 3 years in South Australia. Have a look.
If you are at Adelaide Oval and the ball comes towards you, my advice to you is to duck and just do not touch that ball. Whenever a ball comes towards me, whatever sort of ball, whether it's a basketball or a football, my inclination is to duck. Regardless of COVID, this ball has been touched by many sweaty men out there on the field. Just go and sanitise your hands before you start eating your chips.
I suppose they couldn't afford to get rid of her, but she doesn't deserve to be reappointed, or these people need to go back to their defined role. That's usually putting out pamphlets about not giving your kids chocolate for lunch.
I think public health has been a real loser from this pandemic, and I don't say that lightly. I just, the hysteria beyond Mesperia, like across the board. I think when he came late to the job, the new Queensland Chief Health Officer, whose name escapes me at the moment, but John Gerard.
I'm not certain. I think it's a good sign.
Yeah, I think it's a great sign that we don't know his name.
They were too prominent, most of them.
I mean, if you know, it's not their role, and governments shamefully, premiers all around Australia, abrogated their decision-making duties to public servants who were, for the most part, not qualified in epidemiology. And we're now seeing even the World Health Organization coming out going, those lockdowns were a mistake. Yeah. I mean, come on, you could have written that script a year ago, but seriously.
We were talking, I was saying that script more than a year ago.
Yeah,
it's just outrageous. We've got to move on. We've got to have more accountability from governments and decision makers, not hiding behind public servants. Just briefly, talking about decision makers, what about this one? There we go, yes, the Prime Minister of Finland, Ms. Marin. Now, you know, there's no scandal here, right? What's gone on here is she's an attractive young woman. It's not often you have a Prime Minister who's only 36.
Totally.
And most of the media, probably myself included, we just like showing the pictures of her and people think, oh, you know, isn't it a fun time? There's not really a scandal, is there?
You didn't know this, but this is my column in tomorrow's Australian.
Right?
So this is a lovely segue, and I'm telling you, Chris doesn't know what I'm writing about tomorrow, so you can buy the paper. No, there's no scandal. I think one of the teasers for my column, if you like, she only needs to get better friends. Like,
the topless stuff, photos at your party, just a bit embarrassing when you're Prime Minister.
But it's also like inviting people into your home first of all, and then knowing your role, second of all, who would think that they would jeopardise your job. That's not friendship. I'd say go clean out your inner circle.
We'll just need a little box at the front door. Everyone has to drop their phones in as they arrive and pick them up on the way out, like a budget lockup. Thanks for joining us, Gemma.
You're
Have a great
welcome.
weekend.
And you.